The government says inflation is up about 3%. Cool, great news, right? Well, except car insurance rates are up about 30% in the last 2 years alone. A dozen eggs, which maybe would cost $2, has jumped up about 65% in the last year alone. And homeowners insurance, well, that's up 24% nationally, and in some states, we're talking 50 to 60% price increases. So either the government's math is broken, or they're measuring something completely different than from what you and I are actually spending our money on. And spoiler alert, it's the second one. Look, if you've been feeling like your paycheck just doesn't go as far as it used to, like you're doing everything right, but somehow you're still feeling behind. Well, you're not imagining things. There's a massive gap between the inflation the government reports and the inflation your wallet actually experiences. Today, I'm going to break down exactly why this gap exists, and we are going to look at how the government actually calculates inflation, the sneaky adjustments they make that push the numbers lower, and most importantly, how to figure out what inflation really looks like for you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's start with the basics, because if we are going to tear this thing apart, we need to understand kind of how it works first. Every month, the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases a number called the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI. This is the big one. It's what they use to adjust Social Security payments. It's what the Federal Reserve watches when deciding on interest rates. It moves markets, it changes policy, and it's kind of a big deal. Their latest number, as of late 2025, we are sitting right around 3% year over year. Now, here's how they get that number. The BLS creates what they call a market basket, basically a giant imaginary shopping cart filled with the typical stuff they think Americans buy. We're talking thousands of items: milk, plane tickets, doctor visits, phones, you name it. They literally have people going to stores, calling businesses, checking rental listings, and collecting about 94,000 prices every single month. Same item, same store, month after month. Then they weigh everything, because obviously you spend more on rent than you do on bananas. So a 10% jump in housing should hit harder than a 10% jump in banana prices. Housing, or shelter as they call it, makes up about a third of the whole entire index. Food is around 14%. Throw it all into their formula and boom, you get the CPI. That sounds pretty thorough, right? Pretty scientific. Hold on to that thought. Okay, if the mismatched basket was the only issue, we could probably live with that and we'd be okay. But there is more to this. The BLS makes several adjustments to keep what they call a quality index. And what are these adjustments, you may ask? Well, these adjustments almost always push the official number lower. So, adjustment number one, substitution. The theory goes like this: if steak gets too expensive, you will just buy chicken instead. If your favorite coffee brand prices raise, you'll just switch back to the store brand. Since 1999, they baked this assumption into the CPI. What this means is that the CPI doesn't track the price of the steak you wanted to buy, it averages out the price of the chicken it assumes you have bought instead. Lower prices recorded, lower inflation reported. But here's the question: if you're buying cheaper chicken because you can't afford the steak anymore, did your cost of living really stay the same, or did your standard of living just take a hit? The CPI doesn't account for that trade-off. It just sees the lower price and moves on. Adjustment number two, hedonic quality adjustments. This one's kind of fascinating. So this basically means that when a product gets better, they adjust the price downwards in their calculation. Your brand new phone has a better camera. That 20% price increase isn't really 20% inflation. Part of it is paying for the improvement, so they just adjusted down. Cars got new safety features, adjusted. Your laptop is faster, adjusted. Here's one thing though: you don't get to pay the quality adjusted price at the register. The checkout doesn't give you a discount because your car lane assist is now keeping you safe. You still pay the full sticker price. These adjustments are just a big reason why inflation for cars and electronics can look surprisingly low on paper, even though the actual price has just kept climbing and climbing. Let's take a look at some actual numbers, and not CPI numbers, but what's really happening out there. Let's take a look at car insurance. The average cost of full coverage car insurance is now over $2,100 a year. That is up more than 30% in the last 2 years. Some industry reports show a 78% increase over the past decades. The Bureau of Labor Statistics' own data shows that Americans have paid 19% more for car insurance in 2024 versus 2023. Here's another big one: eggs. In 2024, the price of a dozen eggs jumped 65%. Bird flu outbreaks have led to over 150 million chickens being culled since 2022. At some grocery stores, eggs are running $8, $9, and even $10 a dozen. The USDA has predicted another 20% increase in 2025 for eggs. Homeowners insurance is up 24% nationally over the last 3 years. In states like Nebraska, Utah, and Illinois, increases have hit around 50 to 60%. Insurance companies are pulling out of entire states. Deductibles are going up. Some homeowners are watching their coverage get dropped entirely. These are just the costs that hit the hardest for most households, and they're raising way faster than the 3% inflation that the government is reporting. If all this craziness is making sense so far, you are starting to see why your budget feels tighter even when the headlines say inflation is under control. The next time you see a headline that says inflation is only about 3%, you will know that there is way more to the story. That number comes from a basket of goods that probably does not match what you're actually spending your money on. It includes things like owner's equivalent rent, which is based on what the homeowners guesses their houses could rent for, not for what it actually would or what actual home ownership would cost. And it gets pushed lower by substitution, assumptions, and quality adjustments that don't really reflect what you are paying at the register. Now, is the CPI completely useless? No. It's a tool used for tracking broad economic data, but it was never meant to be a personal financial guide. And treating it like one are where people are kind of getting frustrated. Here's the major takeaway that I want you to take away from all this. Trust what you are seeing in your own life. If your costs are going up faster than the 3%, that is real. Your experiences are valid. The key is to focus on your own personal inflation rate, the actual prices of changes of things that matter to your budget the most. That will actually kind of let you know where you kind of stand. Once you understand that, you can start making decisions based on reality and not just some national government statistic. Okay, before we wrap things up, I got a question for you guys. What is the most surprising price increase that you have noticed this year? I'm genuinely curious. Drop it in the comments and let me know. I want to see what prices people have seen go up and maybe even down, hopefully. If you found this and this breakdowns like this helpful, please subscribe. It'll help kind of grow this channel and get it out there to people, and it would really help me out a lot. So thank you guys. I'll see you on the next video.